Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight into it. So today, this is going to be part 3 of the Is Christ in the Old Testament series. Probably going to wrap it up here, at least for now, because there's so much evidence and there's so many different scriptures that allude to the Hamashiach or Christ, or who the world calls Jesus Christ, or who we call Yahweh in the Hebrew. There's so much evidence that he is in the Old Testament. I mean, you could just keep going with this. So just wanted to kind of bring out some more scriptures here that wasn't covered, and some other points that wasn't covered in part 1 and part 2. But one of the first things I wanted to go over, and I knew that there were guys out here that did not believe in Christ and, claim that he's not in the quote unquote Old Testament. So this is one of the comments from, I believe this is part 2. It says, this guy here, hey, it's Corey. Hey, it's Corey. That's funny. Anyways, it says, he's not here. You're forcing a square inside of a circle, according to you. He says, Yah made sure to have specific names of some of the heathens in the scriptures, Jinn through Malachi mentioned. Okay. Uriah, Cyrus, Nebuchadnezzar, Rahab, to name a few. It seems a bit odd to me that Yahweh mentioned so many names of the heathens in the scriptures, but the name Jesus, Yahweh, Yeshua, call him what you want, is 100% absent. If this only begotten son is prophesied of in the Old Testament, that's what OT stands for, just show us his name. It could all be so simple. The problem, hey, it's Corey, the problem here is that you're the one that's trying to force a square inside of a circle, because the argument was never to just quote unquote show his name. That's never been the standard. And what I pulled up here is the definition of a straw man argument. So a straw man argument, it says here, a straw man argument, sometimes called a straw person argument or spelled strawman argument, is the logical fallacy of distorting an opposing position into an extreme version of itself and then arguing against that extreme version. So that's what you've done here, brother. That's a straw man argument, because nobody ever said that his name had to be listed as Yahweh in the Old Testament. Nobody has ever said that. It's if he's there being mentioned or alluded to or prophesied about, it doesn't matter if his name is mentioned directly. That's such a horrible point, because there's so many different things in the scriptures that aren't laid out explicitly by name, but we know for a fact they're there. So you're just trying to, insert your own opinion to what you believe the standard should be if Yahweh is there or not. Because that's never been the case. Let's see another example over here. A straw man is a form of argument and an informal fallacy of having the impression of refuting an argument. So he's having the impression of refuting an argument. If you're not paying attention, it could possibly get you. It says, whereas the real subject of the argument, meaning is Yahweh in the Old Testament, that's the real subject of the argument, not if his name is there, was not addressed or refuted. See, he didn't mention that at all. He didn't talk about any of the points in those 2 hours of videos. He didn't mention anything about that, but yet he want to go at it if his name is there. Just show me his name. Come on, man. But instead replaced with the false one. One who engages in this fallacy is said to be attacking the straw man. And that's exactly what this guy, Hayes Corey, has done. Okay, let's get Proverbs 13:10. Only by pride cometh contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom. So this guy has pride in a lot of it. Okay, he has a lot of it. Especially you check out this comment here, which is another fallacy I may or may not even get into. Your imaginary LGBT daddy, Howard can't save you, all this stuff. And then he says, go get some comprehension and all this stuff. Go find some comprehension. Really proud. And he doesn't even know what he's talking about. He just created an illogical fallacy in a horrible argument. So let's kind of go into some scriptures here. This whole lesson is not going to be about histological fallacy, but I'm going to touch on that briefly. Let's see here. We're in Job chapter 14, and let's start at 12. So Job chapter 14 and 12 says, "So man lieth down and riseth not, till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep." So this is referring to man, because once man dies, you do not awake again. Okay, that's what it's saying now. That's what it's saying here. If you read all the way through, you can see the comparisons between man, and the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stock thereof die in the ground. It's it's making a comparison between man dying and trees and plants dying. Just paraphrasing there. Okay, verse 13. "Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past, that thou wouldest appointed me a set time and remember me." So Job is prophesying about the wrath that Yahushua is going to bring on planet Earth when he comes back. And he's saying to remember me, meaning, he's saying hopefully he's a part of the elect that will be saved from that said destruction. Okay, verse 14. "If a man dies, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come." Now this he's referring to the celestial bodies that the elect will have upon the resurrection. Now that's two major concepts of the scriptures: resurrection, the celestial bodies. That's not said here explicitly. It doesn't say that directly. But when you use the precepts to line it up, you see exactly what's being referenced to here. The point is, to say just show his name is silly. That's absolutely silly, because there's too many different concepts in the scriptures. There's too many people, areas, things of that nature that is not mentioned directly, but they're still a part of what's actually being written there. So that's just nonsense. I pulled up Daniel chapter 8. Daniel chapter 8, where it says here, verse 5, "And as I was considering, behold, and an he-goat came from the west of the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes." Now we know this he-goat is referring to Alexander the quote-unquote great, or Alexander the Macedonian. And is he being mentioned here? Does it say Alexander the Macedonian? Show me his name, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Speaking of, it says the ram that had two horns. We know this is referring to the Persian Mede Empire, but is that being mentioned? Okay. Where it talks about the little horn went towards the south. We know it's referring to Alexander's generals. Okay. Antiochus the Wicked, Epiphanes. Okay. But it's not being mentioned here directly. Right? So that's just really nonsense. And for you to compare, specific names of the heathens in the scriptures, like that's actual evidence, that doesn't make any sense. That has nothing to do with the title of the lessons. The titles of the lessons, it says here, is Christ in the Old Testament? That's the question. That's the argument. Not is his name listed explicitly the way that you want it to be listed. Okay? That's just kind of simple, man. Let's just keep going, though. Let's get Malachi chapter 4, start at verse 1. "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all of the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yahweh of hosts. that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. So Job was just talking about the same event when Yahushua comes back. It says here in verse 2, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. Who is the Son of Righteousness? Who is that, man? Is this King David? All right. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. This is referring to Yahushua, man. It's really that simple. It's not too deep, man. The same Messiah that's mentioned in Daniel, the 9th chapter. I mean, it's the same person, man, that's all over the scriptures. It's in line. It's the same person. It's not, you probably don't see this and try to, those that believe that Yahushua is not in the quote unquote Old Testament, you're probably going to say it's somebody else or something like that and try to go to some random point that has nothing to do, with the scripture. And it's really all talking about the same person. Okay, who is the Son of Righteousness that has healing in his wings? That's Yahushua, man. Let's get Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. Who is this firstborn, his son, that shall be mourned for, that got pierced? And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. Who is that? Okay. Who is that? Did David get pierced? Okay. Did whoever you try to throw out, Joshua, King Solomon, did they get pierced? No, this is referring to Yahushua. Now, the only person that pierced him was the Roman soldier. So this is really talking about the nation of Israel that didn't accept him. But still, point is that this couldn't fit anybody else, man. It just couldn't. So you got to deal with that. All the prophecies are there. That's why in the quote unquote New Testament, you have evidence there that all of the Israelites that lived in the first century knew about Yahushua's coming. The only difference is they thought that he was Yahushua. When I say he, Yahushua was going to deliver them from the Roman soldiers. I mean, the Roman captivity at that point in time, but that wasn't his mission in his first coming in the flesh. All right. But, they knew about him based off of scriptures just like this. What we read in Malachi, what we read in the first two lessons. It's quite simple. Okay. Let's get Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 15. It says, for behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. So is the Most High coming back on earth? When I say the Most High, I mean not by his strength and his power and his glory and by his direction. I'm not saying that, but I mean from a physical standpoint. Is the Most High going to be the one that comes in the chariots like a whirlwind and renders his anger with fury? Okay, is he going to be the one in the chariots alone? Let's get 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 27. It says, but will God or the Most High indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have builded? So the heaven and the heavens cannot contain the Most High. The earth can't contain the Most High. He's not coming back on earth. He's sending his son to do so. And his hosts, meaning his angels, they fight his battles, man. It's not him directly. We couldn't handle that. Okay, we couldn't handle the Most High actually being here. That ain't how that works. Okay, it never has. Anytime, men talk to the Most High, was not to him directly. It was through a mediator, an angel. Okay, anytime anyone seen the Most High, it was a vision of him, meaning a different version, but not him in the actual physical sense. No man has ever seen the Most High. Okay, no man's ever heard the Most High's voice. And when he comes back to destroy this place, it's not going to be actually him. It's going to be his son and his hosts. Okay, you read about that in Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter. All right, it ain't going to be him. Let's get Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 9. It says, "And I will bring forth a seed out of Jacob, and out of Judah, and an inheritor of my mountains. And mine elect shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there." Who is the seed that's going to come out of Jacob? You can't say it's Jacob now because it says a seed. And out of Judah, inheritor of my mountains. Who is this inheritor of the mountains or the kingdoms, okay, of this earth? Who is going to be the inheritor of the mountains? The same inheritor that's spoken about, that's going to have dominion over the nations in Psalms, the 2nd chapter. As Yahushua, the anointed one, the Messiah. Okay. Really, and the thing is, I said this in one of the other 2 lessons, or maybe both. You can't really argue that the Messiah is not here because it literally says the Messiah. The only thing you can try to argue is that he hasn't returned yet. But it's too much evidence here for you to just turn a blind eye and act like there's no mention of Yahushua being here at all. And for those that may be listening, if you do believe in Yahushua, maybe you're like, okay, I don't know what this guy is talking about. But there are people out there that don't believe. And we have that evidence here. Hummy Hummy said Yahushua New Testament prophecies are twisted and forced to him when it's not referring to him. Okay. They came out with the Quran, he said, too, very accurate. So it's no big deal to come out with the New Testament. And that's the issue. Another thing that people do when they don't understand something, they just try to simplify it to where they can make sense of it in their heads. Something as complex as the quote unquote New Testament, all those different locations and persons that men would have discovered that was false, 2,000 years ago, dang near. You guys think that you can just say something this massive with that much profoundness. You think you can just say something like that and just simplify it. Well, they came out with the Quran. No, the same people that wrote the Quran, not the same people that wrote the quote unquote New Testament. Ain't no they. Okay, the Quran is a bastardization of the Bible. That's where they got anything of wisdom. They got that from the Bible and the Quran. Okay, the quote unquote New Testament is not something that men just came together and just start freestyling. It would have took them so long to do that, to even try to write the quote unquote New Testament. And even if they tried for 1,000 years, there's no way that they ever would have been able to come close to the accuracy that's in the quote unquote New Testament with the rest of the scriptures. It just doesn't add up at all. It's not a logical argument to make. Not at all. Let's get Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 3. It says, "The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway of our power." Who is the voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, that prepare the way of the Lord? Who is that? For those of us that actually know the scriptures, we know that this is referring to John the Baptist. However, if you don't adhere to the quote unquote New Testament, then you got to tell me who this is referring to then. When was this prophecy revealed? I guess we just still got to wait on that. You know, it's just too much here, man. It's overwhelming because we can continue to just keep going. Let's get Daniel chapter 7 and verse 13. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. I said that earlier. And came to the Ancient of Days. Well, not about me saying it, just referring to the scriptures, rather. And came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given unto him dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. Like in Psalms, the 2nd chapter. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. This can't be referring to the Most High because it says giving him a dominion. The Most High, no, most use profane language there, but the Most High don't have to be given anything, man. That's referring to the Most High giving his Son, the Son of Man, dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. Not referring to the Most High, man. He already has all of this. Okay? For perpetuity, forever. All right, so nobody can get the Most High dominion. So how could this be referring to the Most High? And if not, then who else could it be referring to? Who's the Son of Man? King David? No. Okay, again, King David committed adultery. I'm not saying I'm a better man than King David. I'm beyond all correction because I'm nothing at all, and I'm definitely nothing compared to King David. But point is that, he did commit that sin. So, logically we could see that would kind of take him out the running to be the Son of Man, right? All right. With the clouds of heaven. And that's why Yahushua was given that position, because he came here on earth and was sinless. Okay. He had already proven himself, obviously, as an angel before the Most High even chose him. But then he fulfilled all the prophecies. The Most High already knew he would. Okay. But it's kind of plain here, man. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. That's what we were referring to earlier in the book of Isaiah, man. Okay. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his angry with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. Everything that Yahushua does is going to be, based off the direction and the power and the glory of the Most High. But the Most High just has, his angels, his hosts, do these things, man. It's that simple. All the scriptures line up. I mentioned Psalms chapter 2 a few times, so might as well get that real quick. Psalm chapter 2 and verse 1, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Most High and against his anointed, saying, his anointed, being the elect, but also Yahushua, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. Okay. Verse 6, yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. Who is the king? I will declare the decree, because King David's king right now. Is he talking about himself? It's his psalm. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Same thing we've been reading about, man. Okay. Yahushua getting a nod from the Most High to go through. Oh, I went through that verse. Where am I? Okay. Yeah, so the Most High Yahushua getting a nod from the Most High to come back In the clouds of heaven are chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger and fury. Okay, and then be given dominion and glory in the kingdom. It's all lining up, man. Speaking of the king, let's get for Psalms chapter 45 and verse 1. It says, "My heart is inditing a good matter. I speak of the things which I have made touching the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer." So, who is the king being mentioned in this whole chapter? A song celebrating the king's marriage. Who is this? Who is this man? Who? Thy throne, O power, is forever and ever. The scepter of thy kingdom is a right scepter. Who is this that has a forever kingdom? One King David, one King Solomon. Who had the forever kingdom? Verse 11, "So shall the king greatly desire thy beauty, for he is thy Lord, and worship thou him." Referring to the children of Israel, referring to the daughters of Jerusalem, as the scriptures call the children of Israel. So, yeah, man. Now let's get Isaiah chapter 33 and verse 15. "He that walketh righteously and speaketh uprightly, he hath despised the gain of oppressions, that shaketh his hands from holding of bribes, that stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood, and shutteth his eyes from hearing evil." Verse 16, "He shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him. His waters shall be sure." 17, "Thine eyes shall see the king in his beauty. They shall behold the land that is very far off." So who's going to place their two eyes on the Most High? Is this referring to the king, this time being Yahweh Shai? Being the Most High? No. So the reason that you see some of the same things, some of the same titles of the Most High, like Lord, like King, so on and so forth, is because the Most High gave these titles to his son, and there was given him dominion and glory in the kingdom. These things was given unto him, man. It's very simple. All you gotta do is just read what's right here. It's not too complicated. Claim to already know the scriptures. And again, this is only for those that don't. And for those that do, this is just to kind of give you some more points and a different way to look at it as well. So if you believe in Yahweh Shai, just still listen on, just so you can see, different perspectives that you may or may not have had as well. So, of course, I'm not talking to those that believe, but just in case you don't, I'm talking to you. Yeah, man. So, back in Isaiah, since I'm already right here, Isaiah 66 and 15, "For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many." Going to be done by the power of the Most High, by his direction, but not by his literal physical presence from him being there. That ain't how that worked. Okay. The slain of the Lord would have been all, because we can't handle, we all would perish. Okay. So another point, so like two more points and then we out. And I just kind of pulled this up just in my notes and kind of pulled up some scriptures. It's so much more we really could go into. Let's get Hosea chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, "Come and let us return unto the Lord. For he hath torn, and he will heal us. He hath smitten, and he will bind us up." Kahalayim. Verse 2, "After 2 days he will revive us. And the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight." Now, why does it say specifically 3 days? I'm pretty sure that more than 3 days has passed since Hosea wrote these words. So is this referring to an actual 2-day period, 3 days? Clearly not. But according to this guy, hey, it's Corey, Just show us his name. It should be written explicitly what this is talking about. Just show us the period. Just show us where this is not 3 days. Just show us. That ain't how that works. This is referring to periods, not actual days. Sometimes days means periods. Just like in Genesis, in the creation, Genesis chapter 1 and 2 in the creation, it's not referring to 24-hour days. Okay. But notice the allusion to the third day. That's why I came here too. In the third day, all throughout, well, I won't say all throughout, like all over the place, but there's definitely, many allusions to a 3-day period that was talking about Yahushua, all right, or at least alluding to Yahushua, double fold. Let's get 2 Kings chapter 2 and verse 15. It says, Elijah succeeds Elijah. And when the sons of the prophets, which were to view at Jericho, saw him, they said, the spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. And they came to meet him and bowed themselves to the ground before him. And they said unto him, behold now, there be with thy servants 50 strong men. Let them go, we pray thee, and seek thy master, lest peradventure the spirit of Yahweh have taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or in some valley. And he said, ye shall not sin. Verse 17 says, and when they urged him till he was ashamed, he said, sin. They sent therefore 50 men, and they sought 3 days and found him not. Now, why did they look for Elijah for 3 days? And it kind of specifies here 3 days. We know Elijah was a mighty, mighty prophet of the Lord. Okay, one of the mightiest prophets in the entire scriptures, honestly. Now, am I saying that Elijah is Yahushua or anything like that? No, that's not the point. I'm just saying there is an allusion there. Okay, when I say the word allusion, I'm just using a secular word for a prophecy or a foretelling of Yahushua. Okay, let's get Jonah. Okay, the book of Jonah, chapter 1. Let's get straight to it, verse 17. And now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Just like the resurrection, right? Yeah, you could say, if you don't believe in Yahushua, yeah, you can say this is just a random occurrence. It means nothing. But you would be wrong. This is oddly specific, oddly specific time to, sound like this guy, I guess. Make sure to have specific names of the heathens. Well, speaking of, brother, no, I don't think you're going to be ever watching this, but you're probably gone by now. But anyways, this is very specific. 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish. This was a prophecy, a foretelling of Yahushua being in the belly of the beast or the belly of the fish or in what we call hell, in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. That's what that was an allusion to. And it's quite simple to see. Okay. Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 9. I was just reading through Proverbs chapter 20 and then it's hit me. It says, who can say I have made my heart clean? I am pure from my sin. Who can say that? Nobody. So how you guys make your heart clean? How you become pure for your sin with no reconciliation for your sin, with no Levitical priest? That's a question that, guys like, hey, it's Corey and those like hummy. That's what the questions that you guys should be answering, or you should be asking rather. Because that's a question that we all need to know. Like, how are you repenting for your sins with no Levitical priest? Please, somebody break that down for me. How is that possible? It's not. and you can make your heart clean without a Levitical priest, without a sacrifice. Where is the chapter and verse that says, y'all all good now? No Levitical priest, no temple. It's all good. Now your sin is just, it's just forgiven. Those same type of people argue that, we only supposed to go by the quote unquote New Testament, but according to your own doctrine, you're done. You're done because all your sin is going to be counted. How can you make it into the kingdom with no forgiven sins? Okay, the punishment for sin is death. That's why you always had to have an animal sacrifice. When there's sin, there's death. Okay, that's why when Adam through his wife Eve, committed that sin, they brought death into the world, because that's what sin begets, is death. And if you have no Levitical priest, then you beget death. So you should be looking for a Messiah. You should be looking for a Christ, all right, to save you from that. This guy talking about accountability. The ultimate amount of accountability is to understand that you can't do it out here on your own. There's accountability for your actions. Worshiping your oppressor's God, idol, oppressor. See, you give the so-called white man these titles like oppressor and things like that, and you're really empowering him. You're really saying that he's a God over you. Okay? And if you think that he created Yahushua, then you also, he's really your God. That's really what's going on. And you talking about me, it's really you. Guess I can just kind of grab this too. I was looking through everything. I noticed that, now I read up on this El Cristo Negro, the Black Christ of Valle de Bravo in Mexico. And, I just, I just wonder why, you would have, oh man, they got this figure of Christ up there with a skirt on, don't it? That's awful. But anyways, I just always wonder why do you guys think that in the quote unquote New Testament that you got a Christ being mentioned that's so-called black, and then you have so-called black Christ, the original versions, but why would that be if, he was made by the so-called white man? Why would he make Christ so-called black first and then go back and make him white again and then try to cover up that he was so-called black in the beginning if that was the original plan in the first place? That really makes sense. But this is right here in Mexico. Okay. It says the Black Christ is located in the sanctuary of the Lord of Santa Maria in the town of Valle de Bravo, Mexico. Okay. So, that's just more archaeology. But no matter what I show, it doesn't really matter because, what more else do you want? Right? Like, what more else do you want? Because it doesn't matter what you pull up, archaeology and things like that. Like, it doesn't mean that, if it hasn't been discovered by man, it's true or false. That ain't how that work. So-called white man ain't gonna dig up and find everything that the scriptures mention. Okay? And all things is not gonna be known to man. Every single little aspect is not gonna be discovered by man. The scriptures never said that. Okay, at least especially not right now. So what more evidence do you want that Yahushua exists? You go into the scriptures, you show where he's at, and y'all still be saying that, man. It's like, what more evidence do you cats really want, man? And another thing is like, when it comes to like the Septuagint and the history of the Bible, like the quote unquote New Testament has always been there. So it's like this gap in time that it would have taken to quote unquote, create the New Testament and write it. Like it just doesn't exist. You have to show like when this was pulled off by the so-called white man, which was not even in rulership. Of course he was during the Greek and Roman captivity. But again, Why would you write a New Testament to empower a people that you have captivity over? You would not be writing a book to empower them. If you did write something, wouldn't you be writing a book to keep them oppressed? Right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So when did that go down? These are the type of questions that you really would have to answer if you wanted to go there and make that type of claim. And again, the New Testament has always been a part of the Holy Scriptures. So you have to tell me how that goes down, man. All right. And since the New Testament and the Old Testament is a man-made designation, then really you just have nothing else to really stand on, honestly. All right, let me pull some up real quick. Okay, so this is the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary for the definition of Bible. You follow my curse here. You kind of see where I'm going to be reading from. And this is definition again for the word Bible. I saw some interesting points here. It says here in this highlighted portion, it says the names Old and New Testament have been used since the close of the 2nd century to distinguish the Jewish and Christian scriptures, which is really not, neither one of these words don't really matter. It says testament is used in the New Testament KJV to render the Greek word diatheke, Latin testamentum, which in classical usage meant a will. But in the LXX or the 70 or the Septuagint in the New Testament was used to translate the Hebrew word berenth, a covenant. Strictly, therefore, Old and New Testament mean Old and New Covenant. The reference being to the covenants God made with his select people in the 2 dispensations. So, the quote-unquote New Testament is really just the new covenant that was mentioned in Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. So it's not anything that isn't mentioned. Again, man, you guys only know about the differences because man made the difference, not the Most High, man. Let's go to this text part here. It says number 4 text. Although the Bible was written over a period of approximately 1,400 years, from the time of Moses to the end of the 1st century AD. What is that? To the end of the 1st century AD. Its text has come to us in a remarkable state of preservation. It is, of course, not identical with the text that left the hands of the original writers. Scribal errors have necessarily crept in. Until the invention of printing in the middle of the 15th century, all copies of the scriptures were made by hand. There is evidence that the ancient Jewish scribes copied the books of the Old Testament with extreme care. The recent discovered Dead Sea Scrolls, some going back as far as the 2nd and 3rd centuries BC, contain whole books or fragments of all but one Esther. Point I want to get to is the Greek translation of the Old Testament Septuagint begun about 250 BC and completed about 100 years later, although it differs in places Hebrew text. Okay, this part I want to get to real quick, and I had this on like part 2. It says here, in the New Testament, the evidence for the reliability of the text is almost impressively large. It includes about 4,500 Greek manuscripts, dating from about AD 125 to the invention of printing. Versions, the Old Latin and Syriac, going back to about AD 150, and quotations of scripture in the writings of the church fathers, beginning with the end of the 1st century. So, I mean, you have to prove that these 4,500 Greek manuscripts dating back to AD 125 is just complete nonsense. Like there's manuscripts, there's, original texts that can be traced back to where the quote unquote Old Testament came from. It's not like somebody just popped it up out of thin air. It's just based off of nothing. Just because you haven't done the research, you don't know these things does not mean that it's not true. Okay, it's just not coming out of nowhere. It's not a light thing to say the New Testament is made up. That's a claim that would take a massive amount of evidence to disprove, because there is an like it says, almost embarrassingly large amount of evidence to prove that the text is real. It is substantiated. Okay, it is authentic. Okay, so it's not a light thing to say that, oh, they just made up the Quran so they can just make it up. And it's not how that works at all. Okay, just because that's how your mind thinks that it works, it doesn't matter. That's not how it works at all. Okay, so the same definition for Bible in a Zondervan Compact Dictionary right here. This is, just a kind of breakdown of different aspects about the Bible in between. That's consistent in this definition for Bible. Number 7 says message. Although the Bible consists of many different books written over a long period of time by a great variety of writers, it has an organic unity that can be explained only by assuming, as the book itself claims, that its writers were inspired by the Holy Spirit to give the Most High's message to man. That's right. So there's a unity. There is, the way it connects the quote unquote New Testament, the way it connects to the Old Testament, it has to be of the Most High. There's no way man could have accomplished a goal like that. It's not as simple just saying it got made up. It's not that simple. The theme of this message is the same in both testaments: the redemption of man. The Old Testament tells about the origin of man's sin and the preparation the Most High made for his solution of this problem through his own Son and Messiah. So whether you don't believe that or not, it don't matter. The point is, so the unity there, and when you actually understand the quote unquote New Testament, you see the unity is there. It all joins together without any discrepancies or any contradictions at all. And here's like my last question for y'all too. Speaking of, what happened in the first century to our people? What happened around the Greek captivity? These captivities are mentioned in Daniel the 7th and 8th chapters. So just tell me, like, what happened? Because without the Bible, without the quote unquote New Testament and the what they call now the Apocrypha, you would not have any type of collection, any type of evidence that our people existed, or at least any conclusive evidence of us existing at that time, and our history, what happened around those times. So what did happen? Except Yahushua being on the scene for those 30 plus years, what really did happen? You got to show me that. So we just don't know. We just don't know at all. And it was just false. Somebody just made all that up. You guys are like, you're not saying something that's light. There's a lot involved with just removing history and acting like things that happened just didn't happen. That ain't how that works. But anyway, that's pretty much it, man. I didn't even want this to go the full hour, but I think once I combine it together, it's going to be kind of close to it, but it's all good. Look, Yahushua is in the quote unquote Old Testament. Ain't really nothing you could do about it, but it is okay. Anybody else has any other scriptures or anything you want to bring out, just bring it out. Bring it out in the comments or whatever the case. But outside of that, I think we made a pretty good case that Yahushua is in the quote unquote Old Testament. But outside of that, I bid you all a mighty shalom.